George Lessig, also a parishioner of St. Vladimir's in Stamford.
Good afternoon, everyone. Isn't it great to live in the land of the free? I grew up several miles from here, but my parents came from Ukraine in the 1940s when they had to flee the Russian occupation of Ukraine at that time. So history repeats itself. Today, we want to talk about Ukraine, whose freedom and independence are being threatened by Vladimir Putin. Ukraine needs your help. Ukraine is fighting for its life and for the protection of democracy in Europe and the entire world. All of us have watched in horror at the events unfolding in Ukraine over the last week. It is unheard of that in the 21st century, one country can attack its independent democratic neighbor, wreaking death, destruction, and misery on innocent civilians. It is incredibly dangerous for the post-war security structure of Europe and the entire world to allow a reckless dictator to attempt to change internationally recognized borders by force. Where does this lead to? Where does it end? Who else will be involved by these actions? Will China take Taiwan? Who else will suffer? There are far-reaching implications to this war, which we can only begin to imagine. Apart from the other dominoes that may fall, just think, Ukraine is one of the largest grain producers in the world, harvesting 84 million tons of grain in 2021. Already, there are concerns that if Ukraine falls, there will be rising food prices around the world and food shortages in Africa. This Russian invasion is the largest war in Europe since World War II. Vladimir Putin has unleashed a reign of terror on Ukraine, as his advancing army has destroyed civilian buildings, schools, hospitals, and critical infrastructure, such as electrical power stations and water supply systems. Just the other day, his army attacked the largest nuclear power plant in Europe in a city called Zaporizhzhia. Who in the civilized world would do that, putting the entire world at risk? What are we waiting for in order to stop him? The images of children who have died and the more than 1 million refugees who are fleeing this nightmare are totally heartbreaking. No one should suffer like this because of an evil madman who is trying to fulfill his delusional territorial ambitions. We are entering a particularly critical time for the very survival of an independent Ukraine, which has become then a strategic partner for the U.S. and has participated in NATO-led missions assisting NATO, yet NATO has so far been afraid to get involved. Vladimir Putin is escalating his unprovoked and inhuman attacks on Ukraine, slaughtering innocent people and destroying civilian housing, as well as architectural landmarks. We, as a civilized 21st century democracy, cannot stand by and let this genocide happen. If we do not stop Vladimir Putin here, we will be facing additional possible threats to European countries around the world. Putin has already threatened Sweden and Finland if they dare attempt to join the NATO alliance in order to protect themselves. These threats are reminiscent of Hitler in the 1930s and early 40s. Then, as today, we are hearing words like, "We don't want to upset him because he will do something worse." This is a path of appeasement, which never works in the long run, but in fact emboldens an autocratic aggressor to go further in his quest for power. By the way, we have already seen some of Putin's destabilizing work here in the U.S. Maybe you remember the Colonial Pipeline hacked in early May, when gasoline and jet fuel supplies in the southeastern United States were disrupted. He needs to be stopped. To help Ukraine in a more meaningful way militarily, we have to get past this Ukraine is not part of NATO argument. That is entirely wrong and will ultimately have significant repercussions across the world. We have to actively protect Ukraine with more arms, air defenses, and appropriate air support to protect against the Russian invaders. Let's stop the purchase of Russian oil once and for all, or he will be blackmailed. In the 1930s, many people around the world stood by, doing nothing, while the Nazis began destroying the Jewish communities of Europe. If we let the Russian invasion of Ukraine succeed, we will be no better than they were. As Ukrainian President Zelensky said, nearly 80 years of saying never again will ring entirely hollow. History will judge us very severely if we do nothing. The world needs to act now before the Russians conquer Ukraine and put nuclear weapons there and position them against the United States and Europe as they did during the time of the Soviet Union. Good people ask all over the world, how can we help? The most important way is to contact President Biden. You can do it via the White House website, as well as our senators and congressional representatives, and request that they provide the required military aid, including desperately needed air support, so that the people of Ukraine can defend themselves, regain control of their land, and live in freedom. Time is critical here. So let's be bold in the cause for freedom. Let's stop this genocide of the 21st century. Let's stop the purchase of Russian oil. Let's help Ukraine protect their skies with anti-missile defenses and a no-fly zone. We did that in Libya, Iraq, and the Balkans. The stakes for the world are much higher now. Let's provide the Ukrainian military with the equipment they need to defend themselves. They are fighting for all of us. God bless America, and God bless the people of Ukraine.